I didn't build a house in the Philippines because I was rich. I built it because I was afraid. Afraid that my retirement money wouldn't last. After 40 years working in America, I didn't retire with millions. Just Social Security and some savings I couldn't afford to lose. In the United States, building a home was impossible. Even a small house would cost more than everything I had saved. But in the Philippines, I kept hearing something different. You can build a house here for under $20,000. That number stayed in my mind. It sounded like protection. It sounded like stability. It sounded like a way to stop worrying. But what I didn't understand at first was that as a foreigner, I couldn't even legally own the land myself. And that realization forced me to make one of the hardest decisions of my retirement. When you retire on a fixed income, fear becomes part of your daily thinking. Not panic, not desperation. Just quiet fear in the background. Every purchase becomes a calculation. Every unexpected expense becomes a warning. In America, everything felt fragile. Rent could increase. Insurance could increase. Medical bills could appear without warning. There was no ceiling to how expensive life could become. But my income had a ceiling. And once you hit that ceiling, there is nowhere else to go. That is what pushed me to look for another way. The Philippines wasn't originally part of my plan. At first, it was just curiosity. Watching videos. Reading stories. Listening to other retirees talk about stretching their income further. I heard numbers that didn't seem real. Rent for a fraction of American prices. Food that cost less. Utilities that didn't consume half your income. And building a house at a cost that sounded impossible compared to what I knew. For the first time since retiring, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Possibility. Then I learned something that changed everything. Foreigners cannot legally own land outright in the Philippines. Not in their own name. Not individually. There are legal paths, but none of them are as simple as buying property back home. You can lease land long-term, now up to 99 years under Philippine law. You can establish a corporation with majority Filipino ownership. Or if you are married, land can be purchased in your spouse's name. But you cannot simply own it yourself. That realization made the decision heavier. Because now it wasn't just financial risk. It was legal risk, emotional risk, trust risk. I was married. So we made the decision to purchase the land in my wife's name. We talked openly about it. We discussed what it meant. We understood the legal structure. But even with trust, it still felt vulnerable. Because retirement savings represent your lifetime, your labor, your sacrifices. And placing that into something where you don't hold full legal ownership requires emotional strength. It forces you to accept uncertainty. But it also forces you to decide what matters more: perfect legal ownership or financial stability. The first payment was the hardest. Because once money leaves your hands in retirement, it does not come back easily. Working years are behind you. Income is fixed. There is no overtime to recover mistakes. Every dollar matters more. Watching the land being prepared made everything feel real. This wasn't an idea anymore. It was happening. And I had to trust that I made the right decision. At first, progress felt fast. Foundation poured. Walls rising. Roof structure forming. Each stage brought both relief and anxiety. Relief that something permanent was being created. Anxiety because retirement money was turning into concrete and wood. Irreversible. There is no refund for a foundation. There is no return policy on construction. Once built, it becomes part of your life. The original estimate was realistic. But building always includes variables. Small changes. Unexpected adjustments. Better materials chosen for durability. Water systems added for reliability. Electrical systems improved for safety. Each decision added small amounts. Individually manageable. Collectively significant. Nothing catastrophic. But enough to remind me that building overseas requires both financial and emotional flexibility. Construction also teaches patience. Schedules shift. Weather interferes. Materials arrive late. Progress slows unexpectedly. In America, delays feel like failure. Here, delays feel like part of the process. Learning to accept that was difficult at first. But over time, it changed me. I became less anxious, less obsessed with timelines, more focused on outcomes. The first night I slept inside that house, something shifted inside me. Not because the house was luxurious, but because it was stable. There was no rent due next month. No landlord to answer to. No yearly increase waiting to appear. Just quiet. Just predictability. Just peace. And for the first time since retiring, I stopped worrying about where I would live years from now. Even though the land is legally in my wife's name, the decision was made with trust and clarity. We both understood the responsibility. We both understood the importance, and that trust became part of the foundation itself. Building overseas forces you to accept a different definition of ownership. Not just legal ownership, but financial stability, life stability, emotional stability. The real cost was not just the money spent. It was the emotional courage to make the decision. It was accepting a different legal structure. It was trusting a new system. It was stepping outside the financial patterns I had followed my entire life. But in return, I gained something priceless. Predictability, security, peace. I didn't build this house for luxury. I built it to protect my retirement, to protect myself from rising rent, from financial instability, from uncertainty. It wasn't the easiest decision. It wasn't risk-free. But it allowed me to create stability in a stage of life where stability matters most. And sometimes, that is worth everything. If you were retiring overseas, would you feel comfortable building a house knowing the land would not be in your name alone? Or would you prefer to rent forever? Tell me honestly in the comments. Because for many of us, retirement isn't about getting rich. It's about staying secure and staying at peace.